I'm Margot, 32 years old, and I sat frozen at my parents' dining table with a forkful of sweet potatoes halfway to my mouth when my brother, Derek, said those words. You're not invited, Margot. Nobody wants you there. The reunion. Our family's biggest gathering in 20 years planned for 6 months from now. Every cousin, aunt, uncle, grandparent. Everyone except me. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. My father coughed into his napkin. My sister-in-law smirked. That's when I knew. This wasn't just Derek being cruel. This was planned. This was punishment. And I had no idea what I'd done to deserve it. Before I tell you how I got to this moment and what I did about it, I need to know something. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments because this story about family betrayal is universal. But I want to know where my story is reaching. And if you've ever felt like the black sheep in your family, the one who doesn't quite fit, hit that like button. Subscribe because you're going to want to see how this ends. Trust me, what happened at that reunion, even though I wasn't there, was better than anything I could have planned. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let me take you back to the beginning, to when I still believed my family loved me unconditionally. Growing up in Portland, Oregon, I thought I had the ideal family. My parents, Robert and Linda, were the kind of people who hosted neighborhood barbecues and never missed a school play. My older brother Derek, who's 35 now, was the golden child. Charismatic, popular, the son who could do no wrong in my father's eyes. My younger brother Kyle, 28, was the baby of the family, coddled and forgiven for everything. And then there was me sandwiched in the middle, the easy child, who never caused trouble. I was the daughter who brought home straight A's without being asked. The one who made varsity volleyball captain, who volunteered at the animal shelter on weekends, who helped my mother with dinner without complaint. I remember our annual camping trips to Crater Lake, the way my father would set up the tents, while Derek pretended to help, but mostly just joked around. Kyle would wander off to explore, and I'd be the one actually hammering in stakes, organizing supplies, making sure we had everything we needed. Sunday dinners at grandmother Eleanor's house were sacred. She lived in a beautiful craftsman home filled with antiques and the smell of her famous pot roast. I loved those dinners. My grandmother would always save the seat next to her for me. We'd talk about books, about architecture, which I was fascinated with even as a kid. She was the one who encouraged me to pursue it as a career. You have an eye for beauty, Margot, she'd tell me. Don't waste that gift. My relationship with each family member felt solid back then. Dad was distant, but I figured that's just how fathers were with daughters. He was more engaged with Derek, teaching him about finances and business. With me, he was proud but remote, like I was a project that had turned out well and no longer needed his attention. Mom was critical, but I told myself it was because she cared. She wanted me to be perfect, and I tried so hard to be what she wanted. The comments about my weight, my clothing choices, my friends, I absorbed them all and adjusted accordingly. Derek and I were close when we were kids. He was protective of me on the playground, would chase off boys who teased me about my braces. But something shifted when we got to high school. Suddenly I wasn't his little sister to protect. I was competition. When I made honor roll, he'd mention he made it too, plus he was quarterback. When I got into University of Washington, he pointed out he'd gotten a better scholarship to Oregon State. It was subtle, but it was there, this new edge to our relationship. Kyle was 8 years younger than me, which meant I practically helped raise him. I babysat him constantly, helped him with homework, drove him to soccer practice when I got my license. He adored me then, would follow me around like a puppy. I thought that bond was unbreakable. I remember my high school graduation in 2009. I was valedictorian standing at the podium, looking out at my family in the crowd. They seemed so proud. At my graduation party that night, Derek made a toast. To little Margot, he said, raising his glass. Always doing everything right, making the rest of us look bad. Everyone laughed. I laughed too. But there was something in his tone, a sharpness I didn't understand then. College was supposed to be my fresh start. University of Washington in Seattle, studying architecture like I'd always dreamed. I loved it. The design studios, the late nights working on models, the professors who actually appreciated my perfectionism. But I didn't abandon my family. I called home every Sunday, came back to Portland for every holiday, every birthday, every family event. I thought I was doing it right, maintaining that connection. After graduation in 2013, I landed a job at Fletcher and Associates, one of the most prestigious architecture firms in Seattle. I was so excited to tell my parents. Mom said, "That's nice, dear." Dad nodded approvingly. Derek, who was already working in finance in Portland, said, "Seattle's not that far. You'll still be able to come home all the time, right?" It wasn't a question. It was an expectation. And I met it. Every single time. Kyle was still in community college, then trying to figure out what he wanted to do. I'd visit him, take him out to lunch, give him career advice. I thought I was being a good sister. I thought everything was fine. I thought I knew what family meant. But I was wrong. Everything I believed about my place in this family was about to come crashing down, starting with a wedding that would change everything. In February 2016, Derek called me with news. He was engaged. Her name was Stephanie, he'd been dating her for a year, and they were planning a June wedding. I was thrilled for him. When I met Stephanie the following weekend, I tried hard to like her. She was blonde, bubbly, worked in marketing for a tech company. She smiled a lot and said all the right things, but something felt off. The way she looked at me like she was sizing up competition. The way she touched Derek's arm possessively when I hugged him hello. But I pushed those feelings down. I was being paranoid. This was my brother's future wife. The wedding planning started immediately. Stephanie wanted everything big. 250 guests, a venue in the Columbia River Gorge, a designer dress that cost more than my car. Derek asked me to be a bridesmaid, and I was genuinely honored. Finally, I thought I was being included in something important. Then came the bridesmaid dress debacle. Stephanie chose these peach-colored dresses that looked good on exactly nobody. They were unflattering with an empire waist that made everyone look pregnant and a color that washed out every skin tone. All the bridesmaids complained privately, but I was the one who tried to be diplomatic. I suggested very carefully that maybe we could look at a few alternatives. Just to see. Maybe a different shade of peach or a different style in the same color family. Stephanie's face went cold. "I'll think about it," she said. 2 days later, Derek called me. "Stephanie's really upset," he said. "She thinks you're trying to ruin her vision for the wedding." I tried to explain that I was just offering options, that other bridesmaids had concerns too. "But you're the one who spoke up," Derek said. "You made her feel like her choices weren't good enough." I apologized. I kept the peach dress. The bachelorette party in May was my attempt to make things right. I organized a weekend in wine country, coordinated all the logistics, and paid for most of it. $2,000 that I really couldn't afford on my junior architect salary. Stephanie barely thanked me. During the weekend after too much wine, she made comments that the other bridesmaids definitely noticed. "Some people never learn to just go with the flow," she said, looking directly at me. "Some people always have to have things their way." The wedding day itself, June 18th, 2016, was beautiful. The venue overlooked the gorge, the weather was perfect, and Derek looked happier than I'd ever seen him. I gave a heartfelt toast during the reception about how Derek had always been my protector, how I was so happy he'd found someone to build a life with. I meant every word. Later that night, I was dancing with one of the groomsmen, Tyler. He was Derek's friend from college, funny and easy to talk to. We danced to a few songs, exchanged numbers, talked about our jobs. It was innocent, just two people enjoying a wedding reception. Nothing inappropriate happened. Nothing, even close. 3 days later, my phone rang. Derek's name on the screen. I answered cheerfully. "Hey, how's married life?" His voice was ice. "What the hell were you thinking?" I had no idea what he was talking about. "Throwing yourself at Tyler." "At my wedding, do you know who he is?" Apparently, Tyler was Stephanie's cousin's ex-boyfriend. A messy breakup from years ago. Stephanie had told Derek I was all over Tyler, that I was being disrespectful, that I was trying to cause drama. I tried to explain. We just danced. We talked. I didn't know about any history with Stephanie's family. How could I? Derek didn't want to hear it. "You always have to make everything about you," he said. "You couldn't just let Stephanie have her day." You had to be the center of attention. I was stunned. I'd organized the bachelorette party, worn the ugly dress, given a toast that was all about them. How was any of this about me? I called my mother crying, trying to understand. Her response made everything worse. Well, maybe you should have been more aware, she said. Derek and Stephanie are starting their marriage. We need to support them. I asked her how I was supposed to be aware of a relationship history no one told me about. Can't you just apologize to keep the peace? She asked. That was the moment I should have known something was deeply wrong. But I wanted peace. I wanted my family. So I apologized. I sent an expensive gift, wrote a heartfelt letter saying I never meant to cause any problems, that I hoped we could move past this. Stephanie never responded. Derek sent a brief text, fine, that was it. No acceptance of my apology, no acknowledgement that maybe this was blown out of proportion. Just fine. I told myself it would blow over. Family fights happen, right? Everyone moves on. But I was wrong. That wedding wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning. The exclusions started small. So small, I almost didn't notice them at first. My birthday in September 2016, my family usually took me to dinner at my favorite Italian restaurant. It was tradition. That year, Derek and Stephanie canceled last minute. Stephanie isn't feeling well, Derek texted. I was disappointed but understanding. Then I saw their Instagram later that night. They were at a concert. Smiling, dancing clearly, not sick at all. When I mentioned it to my mom, she said, maybe she felt better. I let it go. Christmas 2016 was the first awkward holiday. Stephanie dominated every conversation, talking about their new apartment, their honeymoon, their plans for the future. She made these passive-aggressive comments about career women who are married to their jobs. I worked 60-hour weeks, but I loved my job. I was designing beautiful buildings, solving complex problems. But the way she said it, the way my family laughed at her jokes, made me feel like my career was something shameful, like I should apologize for my success. The year 2017 was when the pattern became impossible to ignore. Easter, I drove 4 hours to Portland, only to find everyone at a different location. They'd changed the venue and forgotten to tell me. I showed up at my parents' house to an empty driveway. When I finally tracked them down at my aunt's house, Stephanie said, "Oh, I thought Derek texted you." He hadn't. 4th of July, they rented a beach house on the coast. I asked for the address 3 times. Never got it. Spent the holiday alone in Seattle. Thanksgiving, I was seated at the kids' table. I was 28 years old, seated with my second cousins under age 10, while Stephanie held court at the adult table. Christmas, during gift exchange, I'd gotten everyone thoughtful presents based on things they'd mentioned throughout the year. I got a generic candle that still had the clearance sticker on it. Spring 2018 brought Kyle's graduation. He'd finally finished his bachelor's degree after 6 years. I offered to help plan his graduation party. My mom said Stephanie's already handling it. I showed up to the party to realize I'd been completely cut out of the planning. There was a photo booth with props and a backdrop. Family kept taking group portraits. I waited for someone to call me over. They never did. Kyle looked uncomfortable when he noticed, but he didn't say anything. He didn't defend me. My parents' 35th wedding anniversary in summer 2018 was worse. Derek and Stephanie planned a surprise party. I found out about it from Facebook. A post from my cousin asking who was bringing what food. I called Derek. "Oh, I thought Mom told you," he said casually. At the party, Derek gave this long speech thanking Stephanie for all her hard work planning this special day. He didn't mention me at all. I contributed $500 to their anniversary gift, a luxury cruise. The card was only signed by Derek and Stephanie. When grandmother Eleanor had a stroke that fall, I found out from my aunt. There was a family group chat created to coordinate hospital visits and updates. I wasn't in it. I rushed to the hospital as soon as I heard my heart pounding, terrified I'd lost her. When I got there, Stephanie was in the waiting room. "Oh, we didn't want to bother you at work," she said sweetly. Like I wouldn't want to know my grandmother was in the hospital. Like work was more important than family. My grandmother recovered, but I felt the message clearly. I was an afterthought. March 2019, Stephanie announced her pregnancy at a family dinner. Everyone screamed, cried with joy. I was genuinely happy for them. I hugged Stephanie, told her congratulations. Her body went stiff. She pulled away quickly, turning to accept my mother's embrace instead. When the baby shower planning started, I asked how I could help. I have enough help, thanks, Stephanie said. I sent an expensive stroller anyway, $600. The thank you note was 3 sentences long and impersonal. Jackson was born in November 2019. I went to the hospital with flowers, excited to meet my nephew. The room was crowded with Stephanie's family. I held Jackson for maybe 5 minutes before Stephanie's mother said she wanted a turn. I overheard her whisper to Stephanie's sister, "At least the important people are here." I was standing right there. They knew I could hear. Christmas 2019 broke something in me. Everything revolved around baby Jackson, which I understood. He was adorable and new babies are exciting. I brought thoughtful gifts, things I'd researched for months. Stephanie opened them without comment, set them aside. Then came family photo time. They'd hired a professional photographer. Everyone gathered for shots. Parents with Jackson. Derek's family. Kyle holding Jackson. Then the photographer said, "Okay, now just immediate family." I started to move into the frame. "Margot, can you step aside?" my mother said. "This is immediate family only." I was immediate family. I was the daughter, the sister, the aunt. But apparently I didn't count. I stood behind the photographer and watched them pose without me. That was the moment something inside me died. I'd spent years trying to figure out what I'd done wrong, how I could fix this. But standing there watching my family smile for pictures I wasn't in, I finally understood. This wasn't about something I'd done. This was about who I was. And they decided I didn't fit. When the pandemic hit in March 2020, I thought maybe isolation would be the great equalizer. We'd all be stuck at home connecting through screens. Maybe without Stephanie's physical presence dominating every gathering, I could reconnect with my family. For the first few weeks, it seemed possible. We started Sunday Zoom calls. Everyone participated. We played online games, showed each other what we were cooking, complained about working from home. I felt hopeful for the first time in years. Then in April, Derek proposed that our parents should bubble with him and Stephanie. Because of baby Jackson, he explained on a family Zoom call, "We need help with childcare, and it's not safe to have outside help coming in." It made logical sense. My parents were recently retired. Jackson was only 6 months old, and Stephanie had just gone back to work remotely. Of course, they should help. But it meant my parents would see Derek's family daily in person, while I remained on Zoom only 3 hours away in Seattle. The isolation period from May through December 2020 was torture. I worked from home in my 1-bedroom apartment alone. The Zoom calls became less frequent. When they did happen, my family had inside jokes. I didn't understand references to things that happened during their daily interactions. I tried to share my life talking about the projects I was working on, the sourdough bread I'd learned to make, the shows I was binge-watching. Their responses were polite but disinterested. Social media made it worse. My Instagram feed was constant reminders of what I was missing. Backyard barbecues at my parents' house. Game nights in Derek's living room. Swimming in my parents' pool. Jackson's first steps, which I learned about from a video posted online, not from a call or text. I was watching my family's life happen without me, through a screen like a stranger. My birthday in September 2020 should have been my wake-up call. We scheduled a Zoom call for 7 p.m. At 7:15, they finally joined. The call lasted exactly 12 minutes. They sang happy birthday, asked how work was going, and seemed distracted the entire time. Later that night, scrolling through Instagram like a masochist, I saw why. They'd been having a party at my parents' house. For me. Without me. They'd called me from the party, surrounded by balloons and cake, pretending they were in their separate homes. Everyone was together, celebrating my birthday, except the person whose birthday it was. I need to pause here because this part still makes my hands shake. Have you ever had that moment where you realize something so obvious you can't believe you missed it? When the truth hits you so hard you can't breathe. That's what seeing those Instagram photos felt like. Drop a comment if you've ever been excluded from your own celebration. And keep watching because what I discovered next made that birthday look like nothing. Thanksgiving 2020, I asked if I could visit. I offered to quarantine for 2 weeks, first, get tested, follow every safety protocol. Derek said it wasn't safe because of Jackson. I spent Thanksgiving alone eating takeout Chinese food, watching them on Instagram having a huge family dinner. Not just my immediate family. Aunt Margaret was there. Uncle Tom. Kyle's new girlfriend. Cousins I hadn't seen in years. Only I was excluded. When I asked my mother about it, she said, "Don't be dramatic. It's about the baby's safety." But it wasn't about safety. If it was, no one would have been there. December 2020 was my breaking point. I called my mother crying. Really crying, the kind where you can barely get words out. "Why am I the only one who can't visit?" I asked. "Why am I the only one who's too dangerous to be around Jackson?" She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Don't be dramatic, Margot. It's about the baby's safety." I pressed her. "But Aunt Margaret was at Thanksgiving." "How is that different?" Another long pause. "That's different." I asked how. She sighed like I was exhausting her. "Margot, why do you always have to make everything so difficult?" That phrase. Why do you always? Like, this was a pattern of behavior I had. Like I was the problem child who constantly caused issues. I'd spent my entire life being the easy one, the one who never caused trouble, and somehow I'd become the difficult one. That's when I realized I'd been cast in a role, the black sheep, the problem, the one who doesn't fit. And once you're cast in that role, everything you do gets filtered through it. If I asked questions, I was making things difficult. If I pointed out exclusions, I was being dramatic. There was no way to win. Christmas 2020 was virtual only. We opened gifts on Zoom. I'd sent thoughtful personal gifts like always. I opened mine on camera gift cards to generic stores, a scarf I'd never wear, a book on a topic I had no interest in. They weren't even trying anymore. Jackson got the expensive educational toy I'd spent hours researching. Stephanie held it up to the camera. "Oh, we already have something like this," she said. She was lying. I'd checked their registry specifically to avoid duplicates, but the lie wasn't for me. It was for the family watching. It was to establish that I didn't know them, didn't pay attention, wasn't really part of this. In January 2021, something good finally happened. I landed a huge client, a major downtown Seattle renovation project. It was the kind of project that could make a career. The Seattle Times did a feature on it, interviewed me, took photos. I was so proud. I called my family to share the news. The congratulations were lukewarm at best. Derek said, "Must be nice to have so much time for work." The implication was clear. I had time for career success because I didn't have real responsibilities, like marriage and children, like the things that actually mattered. By spring, 2021 vaccines were available. Everyone got vaccinated by April. I assumed this meant I could finally visit. I planned a trip home for Mother's Day, made reservations at Mom's favorite restaurant, bought a beautiful gift. The week before, Derek called. "Actually, we're keeping our bubble small still," he said. I pointed out everyone was vaccinated. "Stephanie just isn't comfortable yet," he said. I asked the question I'd been avoiding, with me specifically. He got defensive. "Don't make this about you, Margot." But it was about me. I saw the photos from Mother's Day. Extended family gathering, more than 10 people. Everyone vaccinated. Everyone safe. Everyone there except me. That's when I did something I should have done years earlier. I sent a long email to my parents and Derek. I outlined everything. Years of exclusions, the differential treatment, the constant message that I wasn't wanted. I asked directly, "What did I do? Please tell me so I can fix it." My mother's response, "You're being overly sensitive." Derek's response, "Maybe examine why everyone is pulling away from you." My father didn't respond at all. No acknowledgement of specific incidents. No real engagement with anything I'd said. Just gaslighting. The problem wasn't their behavior. The problem was me for noticing their behavior. That's when I stopped trying. I didn't call every Sunday. I didn't initiate contact. I waited to see if they'd notice. 3 months passed, 0 calls from family. They only reached out when they wanted something practical. Could I forward mail that still came to my apartment? Did I have those photos from 10 years ago? But actual connection. Checking how I was asking about my life? Nothing. By the end of 2021, I'd accepted it. They didn't want me. I still didn't understand why, but I stopped trying to force a relationship they clearly didn't value. I made peace with spending holidays alone. I built friendships that felt more like family than my blood relatives ever had. And then, ironically, that's when they needed me again. Funny how that works, isn't it? In January 2022, my phone rang with my mother's number. It was the first time she'd called me in months. Her voice was businesslike, not warm. "We need to discuss your grandmother's situation," she said. Grandmother Eleanor's health had declined. She needed more care. There was going to be a family meeting to divide responsibilities. I drove to Portland, my stomach churning. The family meeting was at my parents' house. Everyone gathered in the living room: Mom, Dad, Derek, Stephanie, Kyle. They explained the situation. Grandmother Eleanor needed help with daily tasks: shopping, cleaning, medication management, doctor's appointments. Someone needed to step up. Derek said he was too busy with Jackson, who was now 2 years old. Toddlers are a lot of work, he explained. Kyle was starting a new job and couldn't commit time. My parents were both in their early 60s, still working, not ready to retire. They needed to maintain their income. Everyone looked at me. "What about my job?" I asked. Stephanie spoke up. "Well, you don't have kids." The implication hung in the air. My career mattered less because I wasn't a mother. Never mind that I was a senior associate at a prestigious architecture firm. Never mind that I was working on projects worth millions of dollars. I didn't have children, so clearly my time was less valuable. I loved Grandmother Eleanor. She'd always been kind to me, even when others weren't. So I agreed to take her 1 day a week. Every Saturday, I'd drive from Seattle to Portland 3 hours each way to help her. I did her grocery shopping, cleaned her house, organized her medications, took her to appointments. 6 hours of driving, plus a full day of caregiving every single week. From February through July 2022, I became useful again. Suddenly, I was included in the group chat, but only for practical matters. "Can you pick up Grandma's prescription? Can you take her to the doctor on Thursday instead of Saturday?" No personal conversation. No asking how I was doing. Just logistical coordination. My birthday in September passed without a single call. But a week later, "Can you take Grandmother to a specialist appointment?" The pattern became impossible to miss. I was contacted only when needed. Not wanted needed, there's a difference. Want is about relationship connection, love. Need is transactional. I was a service provider, not a daughter. Grandmother Eleanor passed away in August 2022. She was 89 years old. It was peaceful in her sleep, the kind of death everyone hopes for. But I was devastated. She'd been the one person in my family who always made me feel valued. The one who asked about my projects, who wanted to see my design sketches, who told me she was proud of me without qualification. I helped organize the funeral, coordinated flowers, designed the program using my architecture skills to make it beautiful, and paid for the catering. $3,000 I charged to my credit card without hesitation because it was for Grandma. At the funeral, I gave the eulogy. I talked about her kindness, her strength, her independence. How she'd lived life on her own terms. How she'd encouraged me to do the same. I thought it was beautiful. Afterward, several people hugged me crying, saying how perfectly I'd captured her. At the reception, Stephanie cornered me by the dessert table. "That eulogy was a bit much," she said quietly. I asked what she meant. "Just seemed like you were making it about you." I stared at her. The eulogy had been entirely about Grandmother Eleanor. How could it be about me? But that's when I truly understood no matter what I did, it would be wrong. If I was quiet, I was distant and cold. If I spoke up, I was attention-seeking. There was no winning this game. The will reading in September brought everything to a head. Grandmother Eleanor had left a detailed will. Her estate was divided equally among her 4 children, including my mother. But personal items were left to specific people. To me, she left her pearl necklace, a family heirloom worn by her mother and grandmother, before her in her collection of first edition books. To Derek, she left her china set. To Kyle, her vintage record collection. Stephanie was furious. She'd been married to Derek for 6 years but wasn't mentioned in the will at all. After the meeting, Derek confronted me in the parking lot. "You manipulated her when she was vulnerable," he said. I was shocked. "What are you talking about? I loved Grandma." Derek's face was red, angry. "You spent all that time with her just to get her stuff. You saw an old woman with valuable things, and you circled like a vulture." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'd driven 6 hours every Saturday for months to care for her. I'd never thought about inheritance. I'd done it because I loved her. Because she was family. Because it was the right thing to do. "Just give the pearls to Mom," Derek said. "They should stay with the main line of the family." My mother, standing nearby, nodded. "That would be the gracious thing to do, Margot." I stood there in that parking lot, the September sun beating down, and I made a decision. "No," I said. "Grandma specifically wanted me to have them. She wrote it in her will. I'm honoring her wishes." The pressure started immediately. Multiple calls and texts over the next week. Family heirlooms should stay with a direct line. You don't even have kids to pass them to. It's selfish to keep them. But I held firm. These pearls were Grandmother Eleanor's final message to me: you matter, you're valued, you're loved. I wasn't giving that up. The inheritance fight gave them the excuse they needed. Now, I wasn't just the difficult one, I was the selfish one. The one who manipulated a dying woman. Never mind that the will had been written years before her stroke. Never mind that she'd told me multiple times, "I want you to have my pearls when I'm gone." Facts didn't matter. They needed a villain, and I'd been cast in that role long ago. October 2022, I wasn't invited to Jackson's 3rd birthday party. I found out afterward from social media, like always. Kyle posted a picture and tagged everyone except me. November and December passed in silence. I spent Thanksgiving and Christmas alone by choice this time. I sent cards and generic gifts. I received nothing in return. As 2023 began, I made a resolution: I was done trying. Whatever relationship we had left, they'd have to be the ones to reach out. But they never did. At least not until I discovered what they'd been planning behind my back for almost a year. January 2023 started with a professional triumph. I was promoted to senior associate at my firm, the youngest person to reach that level in the company's history. My salary jumped to $120,000 a year. Architectural Digest featured one of my projects in their March issue. I posted about it on social media, proud of what I'd accomplished. My family saw it. They liked the post, but didn't comment. No congratulations call. No text message. Just a passive acknowledgement that they'd seen it. In February, I met Julian through mutual friends. He was an architect at a different firm, tall and thoughtful, with kind eyes and an easy laugh. Our first date was supposed to be coffee, but turned into a 4-hour conversation about sustainable design and travel and favorite books. He was emotionally available in a way I wasn't used to. He asked questions and actually listened to the answers. After years of therapy working through my family issues, I was cautious. But Julian was patient. Our relationship developed slowly, naturally. I didn't tell my family about him. They never asked about my personal life anyway. April brought an unexpected text from my cousin Bethany. She was my age, the daughter of my mother's sister, Margaret. We'd been close as kids, playing together at family gatherings, but had drifted apart as adults. She lived in California now. Her text was casual: "Hey stranger, long time no see. How are you? We caught up on life, jobs, relationships." Then she asked, "Are you excited about the reunion?" My heart stopped. What reunion? There was a long pause before her response. "The family reunion. This November. For Grandma Eleanor's 80th birthday celebration." I typed back carefully. "Grandma passed away last August." Another pause. "I know. This is a memorial celebration. The whole family is coming together. Haven't you been involved in the planning?" My hands were shaking as I typed. I didn't know about it. Bethany's next message came quickly, all caps: "Oh no. You didn't know. I'm so sorry. I thought you were one of the organizers." She started sending details. The reunion was planned for November 18th, 2023. They'd rented a family lodge at Mount Hood for the weekend. catered meals, professional photographer, memory books. 70+ family members invited. Extended family from across the country, some flying in. The biggest family gathering in 20 years. I asked Bethany to send me everything she had. Screenshots started flooding my phone. There was a private Facebook group called Eleanor's Legacy Reunion with 68 members. I wasn't in it. I scrolled through months of planning discussions, menu selection activity, planning room assignments, posts from various family members, sharing memories and old photos. There was a post from Stephanie, can't wait for Jackson to meet all his relatives, comments underneath from aunts and cousins and second cousins, all excited. I searched the entire group for my name. Nothing. 0 mentions. It was like I didn't exist. Bethany told me the planning started in October 2022, right after the inheritance fight over grandmother Eleanor's pearls. They'd been organizing this for 8 months. Physical invitations had been sent in July. Hotel room blocks reserved. Final headcount taken in October. At no point in 8 months of planning did anyone mention me. I checked with other cousins, carefully not wanting to reveal I'd been excluded. Everyone knew about the reunion. Everyone assumed I knew. Everyone was making travel arrangements. Some were bringing their kids, their partners. It was the social event of the year for our family. And I'd been intentionally left out. In May 2023, I started seeing a therapist more frequently. We'd been working together since 2018, but now we had intensive sessions. This wasn't accidental exclusion, she pointed out. This was intentional erasure. They were creating a family narrative, building family bonds, making memories, all without me. This was their way of writing me out of the family story. Julian was horrified when I told him. You have to confront them, he said. But I decided to wait. I wanted to see if they'd invite me. Maybe it was an oversight. Maybe someone would realize and reach out. But as the months passed, nothing changed. June, July, August, September, October. The reunion planning intensified according to Bethany's updates. I monitored from a distance, watching my family prepare for this massive gathering that I wasn't part of. Bethany reported that in August, Aunt Margaret asked once, "What about Margot?" My mother's response, "Margot's very busy with work. She probably wouldn't be able to make it anyway." That was the only time my name came up in 8 months of planning. They didn't exclude me and explain why. They simply erased me and acted like I'd never existed. By late October, I made my decision. I would go to Thanksgiving at my parents' house. I would ask about the reunion directly. I needed to look them in the eyes and hear them explain. Julian offered to come with me for support, but I declined. This was something I needed to do alone. The drive from Seattle to Portland on Thanksgiving Day 2023 took longer than usual because of traffic. 4 hours of rehearsing what I'd say, imagining their responses, preparing for denial and gaslighting. I expected them to lie, to make excuses, to turn it around on me somehow. But I needed to hear it. I needed that final confirmation before I could truly let go. I pulled up to my parents' colonial-style house in their Portland suburb. The house I grew up in, with a wraparound porch and the maple tree I'd climbed as a kid. It was decorated for Thanksgiving with wreaths and pumpkins. Derek and Stephanie's car was already there. Kyle's truck in the driveway. I sat in my car for a full minute gathering courage. Then I grabbed the wine I'd brought and walked to the door. I had no idea that the next few hours would destroy what was left of my relationship with my family. But they would also set me free. I walked through the front door at 11 in the morning, hit immediately by the smells of Thanksgiving. Turkey roasting, cinnamon from pumpkin pie, sage from stuffing. My mother was in the kitchen, wearing an apron, my father in the living room watching football. Derek and Stephanie sat on the couch with Jackson playing with trucks on the floor. Kyle was setting the dining room table. Everyone looked up when I entered. There was a beat of surprise on their faces, like they hadn't really expected me to come. "Oh, Margot, you made it," my mother said. Her tone suggested she'd thought I might not. I forced a smile. "Of course, it's Thanksgiving." I held up the wine. "Where should I put this?" The hours before dinner were excruciating. I offered to help in the kitchen. My mother said she had it handled. I sat in the living room trying to make conversation. I attempted to play with Jackson, now 4 years old, but he barely knew me. He looked at me like I was a stranger, which I guess I was. Stephanie hovered protectively, ready to intervene if I got too close to her son. The conversation flowed around me, not to me. They talked about people I didn't know, referenced events I hadn't been part of. Inside jokes I wasn't in on. Kyle tried once or twice to include me, asking about work. But Derek would change the subject, or Stephanie would interrupt with something about Jackson. I sat there, watching my family interact, seeing clearly how they'd built a life that didn't include me. At 3 p.m., we moved to the dining room. My mother had set the table beautifully with her good china candles, a cornucopia centerpiece. The seating arrangement told me everything. My parents at the heads of the table, Derek, Stephanie, and Jackson on one side, Kyle and me on the other, with me next to Kyle, like he was a buffer between me and the rest of the family. Food was passed. Turkey, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, rolls, cranberry sauce. All my mother's traditional dishes. My father said grace, thanking God for family and health and blessings. I thought how ironic it was to give thanks for family when half the people at this table wished I wasn't here. Small talk started. Kyle's new job at a tech startup. Jackson's preschool. Derek's recent promotion to vice president at his financial firm. I waited for someone to ask about my life. Nobody did. Finally, I volunteered, mentioning the Architectural Digest feature. "Oh, that's nice," my mother said, her tone flat. The conversation immediately shifted back to Jackson's upcoming Christmas pageant. I'd been building my courage all day. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I put down my fork, took a sip of wine. This was it. The moment I'd driven 4 hours for. I looked around the table, meeting each person's eyes. Then I said it. "So just tell me when the reunion is." The table went silent. Forks stopped midair. Everyone froze like we were playing a game of freeze tag. I continued, my voice steady. "November 18th, right at Mount Hood." My mother's face drained of color. My father coughed into his napkin. Derek's jaw clenched. Stephanie's mouth curved into a small, satisfied smirk. Kyle looked genuinely confused. "What reunion?" he asked. So Kyle hadn't been in on the planning either. Interesting. Derek recovered first. His voice came out cold, deliberate. "You're not invited, Margot." Just like that. 5 words that confirmed everything. No preamble, no explanation, no softening the blow. "Why?" I asked. The pause that followed was excruciating. I could hear the clock ticking on the wall, the distant sound of a neighbor's dog barking. Then Derek said, "Nobody wants you there." I felt like I'd been slapped. Nobody, 70 people, and not one wants me there. Derek leaned back in his chair. "You made your choices." I leaned forward. "What choices? What did I do?" Stephanie jumped in, her voice sharp. "You're always causing drama." I turned to her. "What drama?" "Give me one specific example." She didn't miss a beat. The wedding. Tyler. That whole situation. I couldn't believe this. That was 7 years ago and I did nothing wrong. I danced with someone at a wedding. That's it. Derek's voice rose. "You made our wedding about you. It was supposed to be our day and you had to be the center of attention." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. By existing, by dancing with someone, I wore the dress you picked, organized the bachelorette party, gave a toast about you. How is any of that making it about me? My mother interrupted. "Margot, please. Let's not do this now." I turned to her, my voice shaking but clear. "You planned this reunion, this massive family gathering. And you didn't invite your own daughter. We're doing this now." She wouldn't look at me. "You're always so busy with work. We didn't think you could make it." The excuse was so thin, it was transparent. "That's the reason. That I have a career. That I work hard." My father finally spoke, his voice gruff. "Margot, we thought it would be easier this way. Easier for who I demanded." He shifted uncomfortably. "For everyone. You've been distant." I felt anger rising hot and sharp. "I've been distant. I drove 4 hours today. I drove here every Saturday for 6 months to take care of Grandma. I show up for every holiday. You exclude me and then blame me for being distant. Derek stood up his chair, scraping against the floor. You just don't fit anymore, Margot. I stood up too. Fit what? Stephanie answered, her voice smug. The family. Our values. I looked at her, this woman who'd inserted herself into my family, and somehow turned them all against me. What values am I violating? The silence was heavy, oppressive. Then my mother said quietly, You're different, Margot. You always have been. Kyle spoke up, sounding confused and upset. Mom, what are you talking about? My mother folded her napkin carefully. She's career-focused, unmarried, no children. She doesn't understand family priorities. The truth hit me like cold water. This is because I'm not married. Because I don't have kids. Derek's voice was harsh. It's because you're selfish. Everything is about your career, your life, what you want. I shook my head. I'm selfish. I helped with Grandma when nobody else would. I send gifts. I drive here constantly. I try. And you expect praise for basic decency, Derek shot back. Stephanie added, Honestly, the reunion is about family. Real family. People who understand what that means. I stared at her. I'm not real family. She had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. You know what I mean. I carefully placed my napkin on the table. My hands were trembling, but my voice was steady. I looked at each person. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. My father stared at his plate. Derek looked defiant, angry. Stephanie looked satisfied, like she'd won something. Kyle looked confused and uncomfortable. I have never, not once, put my career above this family, I said. I have shown up for every event, every holiday, every crisis. I cared for Grandma Eleanor when nobody else would. I have tried for years to understand why you treat me like I'm invisible. And the reason is, I'm not married. I don't have kids. My mother started to speak. Margot, you're overreacting. I held up my hand. No. For once, I'm reacting exactly right. I turned to leave. Derek called after me. So you're just going to walk out, prove us right? I turned back. Prove you right about what? His voice was sharp. That you don't care about family. I looked at him, this person who used to protect me from playground bullies, who used to build blanket forts with me, who I thought would always be on my side. I don't care about this, I said. Whatever this isn't family. Family doesn't erase you. Family doesn't punish you for being yourself. I walked to the front door. Kyle followed. Margot, wait. I swear I didn't know about the reunion. I turned to face him. But you've noticed how they treat me. You've seen it for years. And you said nothing. He opened his mouth, then closed it. There was nothing he could say. I drove back to Seattle that night. 4 hours in the dark, tears streaming down my face so hard I had to pull over twice to compose myself. I'd wanted the truth. Now I had it. They didn't want me because I didn't fit their picture of what a woman, a daughter, a sister should be. Not because of anything I'd done wrong. Because of who I was. My independence, my career, my choices. Things I couldn't change wouldn't change. Things that made me me. But somewhere around mile marker 120, the tears stopped. And the anger started. They wanted to have their reunion without me. They wanted to celebrate Grandmother Eleanor's memory while erasing me from the family. Fine. But I wasn't going to disappear quietly. I was going to make sure that reunion was memorable for all the wrong reasons. And I was going to do it using the one thing they'd tried to take from me, Grandmother Eleanor's love. The first week after Thanksgiving was a blur. I called in sick to work for 2 days, something I'd never done before. I stayed in my apartment, alternating between crying and staring at the wall. Julian came over with food and just sat with me. He didn't try to fix it or minimize it. He just held my hand and let me process. My emergency therapy session helped me start thinking clearly again. You're grieving, my therapist said. You're mourning the family you thought you had. That's a real loss. But then she said something that changed everything. You're also free now. You know the truth. You can stop trying to earn something that was never available to you. Cousin Bethany called furious on my behalf. What they did is insane, she said. You're invited to my house for every holiday from now on. I mean it. That solidarity from someone who barely knew me anymore meant more than she could know. It reminded me that blood doesn't automatically mean family, and family doesn't require blood. In early December, I started going through the items grandmother Eleanor had left me. The pearl necklace, which I'd kept in its velvet box too precious to wear, and the first edition books, beautiful leather-bound volumes I'd been too sad to look at. But when I opened them, I realized they weren't just books. They were grandmother Eleanor's journals spanning decades. I started reading. Page after page of her elegant handwriting documenting family events, holidays, observations. And I found entries about me. About all of us. From 2015, I worry about Linda's relationship with Margot. She's so critical of that girl. Margot tries so hard to please her mother, but nothing's ever enough. From 2017, Derek has changed since marrying Stephanie. I don't like the way he dismisses Margot now. That's not how I raised Linda to raise her children. From 2019, Margot reminds me of myself at that age. Independent, ambitious, uninterested in following the traditional path. Linda resents her for it just like my own mother resented me. History repeating itself. From 2022, just months before her death, I worry they don't see Margot's worth. She's the one who shows up every week, who takes care of me without complaint, who asks about my life. But they take her for granted. I'm leaving her the pearls. She's the only one who'll treasure them for the right reasons. Grandmother Eleanor saw everything. She understood the family dynamics better than I did. And she'd left me more than pearls and books. She'd left me validation. Proof that I wasn't crazy, wasn't imagining things. Someone saw me. Someone valued me. I made copies of the relevant journal entries. Then I got an idea. They were creating a memory book for the reunion, according to Bethany. An official family narrative. What if I created a different memory book, one that told the truth? I spent January through October 2023 working on it. I used my design skills to create something beautiful and professional. Grandmother Eleanor, The Truth She Saw, I titled it. It included her journal entries about family dynamics, photos of me with her during those Saturday visits, her smiling as I helped her garden, laughing as we looked through old photo albums together. Letters she'd written to me over the years encouraging me to pursue architecture, to stay true to myself. And a copy of her will with a section highlighted where she explained why she was leaving specific items to specific people. Her words about me, Margot, has inherited my independent spirit. I hope she never loses it. I had 70 copies professionally printed. It cost $2,000. Worth every penny. Then I wrote a letter to be included with each book. I wrote and rewrote it a dozen times, wanting to get the tone exactly right. Not angry, not vindictive, just honest. The letter read, "To my family, I created this memory book because Grandmother Eleanor deserves to be remembered fully and truthfully. She was a woman who valued authenticity, who encouraged independence, who loved unconditionally. The official reunion memory book has erased my relationship with her, just as you've erased me from the family. But the truth remains. Grandmother Eleanor loved me. She valued me. She saw me. I spent every Saturday for 6 months caring for her, and it was an honor. These journal entries show what she really thought about our family dynamics. I'm not sharing this to cause pain, but because her memory deserves honesty. She would want that. I won't be at the reunion. You made sure of that. But this is my goodbye. I hope someday you understand what you've lost. More importantly, I hope the younger generation, especially Jackson, learns that family means acceptance, not conformity. With love and sadness, Margot." Bethany agreed to be my courier. She'd attend the reunion, wait for the right moment, then distribute the books. The plan was set. The books were printed. All that was left was to wait. November 18th, 2023. Reunion Day. I spent the morning with Julian. We went hiking at a state park trying to distract me. But I checked my phone constantly, waiting for updates from Bethany. She texted throughout the day. "Just arrived. The lodge is beautiful. Everyone's here. Your mom is playing hostess. Derek is holding court with a group of cousins. Stephanie has shown everyone approximately 1 million photos of Jackson. At least 5 people have asked where you are. Your mom keeps saying you had work obligations." Saturday afternoon at 3 p.m., the memory sharing session began. This was the main event, the centerpiece of the reunion. Family gathered in the lodge's great room. My mother presented the official memory book filled with photos and stories about grandmother Eleanor. Bethany texted me, "You're in exactly 3 photos, all from when you were a kid. Nothing about your adult relationship with her. It's like you stopped existing at age 10. Then Bethany stood up. "I have something else to share," she announced. She brought out my books and started handing them out. My mother tried to stop her. "What is this?" Bethany smiled. "A different memory book. From Margot." Linda tried to collect them back, but cousins, aunts, uncles were already opening them, curious. Bethany's texts came rapid fire after that. "Oh my God, they're reading the journal entries. Your Aunt Margaret is crying. Uncle Tom just asked your mom why she told everyone you were too busy to come. Cousin after cousin is realizing you were excluded. The photos of you with Grandma are hitting hard. Your devotion is so obvious." Derek tried to defend it. "This is taken out of context," he said loudly. But Grandmother Eleanor's words were clear. Stephanie called it manipulation. But Bethany stood firm. "No, this is truth." Family members started questioning my mother and Derek. Why wasn't Margot invited? Why was she erased from the memory book? What happened? The excuses sounded hollow. "She's different. She doesn't prioritize family. Not when faced with photos of me caring for grandmother Eleanor every week. Not when faced with her own mother's words about how much she valued me." Bethany read my letter aloud to the whole group. By the end, multiple people were crying. Aunt Margaret confronted my mother. "How could you do this to your daughter?" My mother broke down, finally admitting truth. "She reminds me of my mother too much. Eleanor had been independent, strong-willed, unconventional. My mother had spent her whole life trying to be the opposite to fit in to be traditional. And she resented that I was like Eleanor, that I wasn't ashamed of it." The reunion fell apart. Arguments broke out. Some family members left early. The perfect weekend my mother had planned was in ruins. But something good came from it too. Kyle called me crying. "I'm so sorry. I should have stood up for you years ago." Cousins reached out. Aunt Margaret invited me to Christmas. Uncle Tom said, "Your grandmother would be proud of you." My mother tried calling. I didn't answer. Derek sent angry texts. "You ruined everything. This was supposed to be about family and you made it about you again." I blocked his number. I was done. Done explaining, done defending, done trying. They'd made their choice. Now I was making mine. The weeks after the reunion brought an avalanche of messages. Cousins apologizing for not knowing. Aunts and uncles expressing shock and support. Invitations to holidays from family members who actually wanted me there. Each message was validation. I wasn't crazy. The exclusion was real, intentional, and wrong. My mother left a voicemail the week after the reunion. Her tone wasn't apologetic, it was demanding. "Margot, we need to talk about what happened. Call me back." I didn't. Derek sent a long email blaming me for destroying the family, for causing drama, for making everything about me. I read it once, archived it, and moved on. I wasn't engaging anymore. Kyle drove to Seattle in early December. He took me to dinner and gave me a genuine apology. "I was a coward," he said. "I saw how they treated you. I knew it was wrong. But I was afraid if I defended you, I'd become a target too. So I stayed quiet. I'm ashamed of that." His honesty meant something. I told him, "I forgive you. But our relationship is different now. I need you to prove with actions, not just words, that you mean it." Christmas 2023 was the first holiday I enjoyed in years. I spent Christmas Eve with Aunt Margaret's family. Warmth, laughter, genuine welcome. I wore grandmother Eleanor's pearls. Aunt Margaret cried when she saw them. "Mom would be so happy you have those," she said. Christmas Day I spent with Julian and his family. His mother hugged me and said, "We're so glad you're here." Simple words, but they made me cry. This is what family should feel like. My mother sent a letter in January. "We should talk about what happened. There have been misunderstandings. No real apology, no acknowledgement of specific harm. Just vague language about misunderstandings." I wrote back one time, my only direct communication. "There was no misunderstanding. You excluded me intentionally for years because I didn't meet your expectations of what a daughter should be. You erased me from family history. That was a choice. Until you can acknowledge that and genuinely apologize, we have nothing to discuss. I'm not interested in being tolerated. I deserve to be celebrated. I sent the letter and felt free. My mother didn't respond. I heard through Kyle that Derek and Stephanie's marriage was strained. The reunion fallout had caused problems. Stephanie's family, who'd been at the reunion, questioned their behavior. But neither Derek nor Stephanie took responsibility. They were victims in their telling. I felt nothing about it. Not schadenfreude, not satisfaction. Just nothing. They weren't my problem anymore. I wondered about Jackson sometimes. My nephew, now 4 years old, who barely knew me. Maybe someday when he was older, he'd seek me out. He'd hear different versions of the family story and want to know mine. If that happened, I'd be there. But I wouldn't force it. My relationship with Julian deepened through all this. He saw me at my worst, broken and grieving, and he stayed. In January 2024, he proposed. Not with a big production, just the two of us on a rainy Seattle evening sitting on my apartment floor eating takeout Thai food. I love you, he said. I love your strength, your integrity, your kindness. I love that you refuse to make yourself smaller to fit into spaces that don't deserve you. Marry me. I said yes. Not because I needed marriage to validate me, but because I wanted to build a life with him. We planned a small wedding for June. Just chosen family. Cousins who supported me. Friends who'd become family. Julian's warm, accepting family. And Kyle, who'd earned back my trust slowly but surely. No invitation to my parents or Derek. That door was closed. In February 2024, my firm promoted me to partner, the youngest partner in the company's 100-year history. The thing they'd criticized me for my focus on career had led to extraordinary success. I was thriving. I think about family dynamics a lot now. How my mother's need for control drove her to reject anyone who wouldn't conform. How Derek's insecurity meant he always needed to be the favorite, and my existence threatened that. How Stephanie saw me as competition from day one and systematically worked to eliminate me. How generational patterns repeat. Grandmother Eleanor broke them. My mother enforced them. I was breaking them again. But the real revenge wasn't the reunion reveal, though. That was satisfying. The real revenge was living well. Building a chosen family of people who loved me as I was. Finding success and happiness and peace. Refusing to shrink myself to fit their narrow definition of acceptable. Proving I didn't need their approval to have a beautiful life. Last week, I wore Grandmother Eleanor's pearls to my engagement party. 50 people came, filling our favorite restaurant. Bethany flew up from California. Aunt Margaret and Uncle Tom drove from Portland. Cousins I'd reconnected with. Julian's family. Friends who'd supported me through everything. Bethany made a toast to Margot, who taught us that family is what you make it, not just who you're born to. Julian toasted to the strongest, kindest person I know. To building our own family traditions. Kyle, tears in his eyes, toasted. To my sister, who deserved so much better and found it anyway. I looked around the room at all these people who chose me and who I chose back. This was my family. Real family. The kind that shows up, that celebrates you, that loves you unconditionally. I no longer grieved what I'd lost. I celebrated what I'd found. Grandmother Eleanor wrote in her journal in 2020, "The ones who don't fit are often the ones brave enough to be themselves." Margot has that bravery. I hope she never loses it. I finally understood what she meant. I was never the problem. My refusal to conform, to shrink, to apologize for being myself wasn't a flaw. It was my strength. And it was my inheritance from her, more valuable than any pearls. They lost a daughter who would have loved them unconditionally. I lost people who only loved me conditionally. I got the better end of that deal. Now it's your turn. Have you ever been the scapegoat in your family, the one who didn't fit the mold, or maybe you've watched someone else go through this? I want to hear your stories. Drop them in the comments below. And here's my real question. Do you think my revenge at the reunion was justified? Or should I have just walked away quietly? There's no right answer, but I'm curious what you think. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel because I'll be sharing more stories about family dynamics, setting boundaries, and choosing yourself. Share this video with anyone who needs to hear that it's okay to walk away from toxic family. It's okay to choose peace over obligation. Thank you for listening to my story. It wasn't easy to share, but I hope it helps someone out there who's going through something similar. You're not alone. You're not crazy. And you deserve to be loved for exactly who you are. Remember that chosen family is just as valid as blood family. Sometimes more so. Build your life around people who celebrate you, not tolerate you. That's the real happy ending. I'm Margot, and I'm finally free.